My name is Germana Ravanelli. I am a certified clinical hypnotherapist, a mind-body healer, a personal trainer, a nutritional therapist. I was taught that health is harmonizing the body, the mind, and the spirit. Thank you so much for taking a few moments out of your precious day to watch this video. This video is how hypnotherapy can help a person change or heal or create resolution. And I'm going to offer just information, basic information. I am a certified clinical hypnotherapist. I took 8 years to get my full level of training through the Canadian Hypnotherapy Association that disbanded quite a few years ago, but their criteria was very specific, and I spent 8 years becoming a certified clinical hypnotherapist. So the information that I share is experience with clients, experience being a client, and also just watching and observing how people are impacted by unresolved messages that they've carried and how to help them really heal that. So I want you, if you're curious, if you like this, please feel invited to, take some notes. Understanding the subconscious mind is really critical for having compassion and empathy and understanding what is the message underneath this behavior. Most people don't realize that if we have a belief system, that belief system will create thoughts. So say if I have a belief that the world is a good place, I'll have thoughts that match that. And then that will inspire me to take risks and do things and kind of live a pretty full life. If on the other side of that dynamic, I have a belief system that I have inherited maybe from a family member or from a conflicting situation that I didn't get resolved as a very young person, I might have a belief system that says I'm not safe and I'm not wanted. And then what will happen is the mind will start to bring up messages and words and stories that match that core wound. So a belief system and a core wound are often the same thing. Not always, because sometimes it's a beautiful message. And so if the mind starts giving us messages that there's something wrong and I'm not good enough or I'm not wanted, then you're going to see behaviors that are trying to adapt, trying to be good enough. And that might be someone who never rests, who never takes a break, who basically abandons their authentic self to be liked at the cost of their health and their dignity. What a hypnotherapist does when we look at someone and we ask information, we'll ask, what is the emotion or what is the behavior or what does your life look like today? Basically, what is the theme song in your life? Like if you watched Jaws, we all know that music, doo-doo, 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 meant there was going to be a shark biting and eating somebody. So that's kind of like the orchestrator music, our own elevator music in our inner world. When people I can't be hypnotized, they don't understand what it is, because hypnosis is something that we do just before we fall asleep and just before we wake up. It's a slowing down of the brain waves. And our original programming, how we're taught to be so-called human or to adapt to the world that we've been born into, our subconscious mind is wide open and it basically picks up the messages of our caregivers. We don't have words yet, but we know intuitively how to manage or read the room intuitively, which is our subconscious mind. And that stays running as a protection, as an instinct for girls until they're about 11 years old, and then their conscious mind goes, I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if that's true. And boys, it's usually about 6 or 7. So many of our core beliefs, whether they're positive or negative, which can be the theme song of our life, gets installed from 0, so conception, right up until 11 for women and 0 to 7 for men. And unless there's a really, really dynamic situation that takes place, maybe it's a betrayal in a relationship or an accident or an unacceptable event, then that will also create a new decision about the world. I'll talk a little bit about what it can be used for, almost anything. If you have say you have depression or you have anxiety or you have a disorder, whether it's an eating disorder or, a picking disorder, all of that is a subconscious mind trying to self-soothe. And when we are taught how to get the need met underneath the behavior, then the behavior can usually just dissolve. The subconscious mind is responsible for 97% of all of the outcomes in our life. So if you look at a part of your life and go, I'm doing really well here and here and here, and this one area, not so good, then if you went to a hypnotherapist that understands the dynamics behind that, they can help you clear that conflicting belief or that emotion or that limiting decision, and all of a sudden you can then naturally receive joy, peace, harmony, abundance in that area. I don't know how many people remember things like this. This is called one of the Russian dolls. And let's say this is the adult self. This adult self may be our shell. Underneath it is layers, it's noisy, sorry, of other dolls. And what these represent is, parts of us when we're younger. And often the part of us that is making the decision in our life is quite a lot younger than the adult self. So we've got different sizes. And when you go to a highly skilled therapist that does regression work, it's often somewhere where that person didn't have someone to say, do you need help? You look scared. Do you need a hug? Do you need someone to tell you that you're doing a good job? And many of us will have some time in our life where we maybe didn't get taken care of. Maybe we got hurt and we needed someone to say, I'm here for you. And maybe our parents were busy. Maybe our parents were sick. Maybe we didn't get told that we were important. And so what happens is these younger parts of us actually make up a story about who we are and what we are. And that actually becomes the theme song, the music in Jaws or the Twilight Zone. And a good therapist can help the person get to the youngest, most vulnerable time when that person may have decided, oh, nobody loves me. I have to beg for love. I'll never be smart. I'll never make money. And often what we'll see is, number one, it's not true, but the part of us that made that decision was a child that was helpless, scared, fearful. And that part of us is often making the decisions that run our life. And why does that matter? Have you ever met someone who was really lovely and all of a sudden you saw them have a meltdown and not be able to make a rational decision? Maybe they, when it fell into some sort of an emotional conflict and they blow up. When anytime you see someone with high emotion that's stressed and angry and mean and snarly, kind of like a cat that's wet, that's their subconscious mind going, I'm going to protect you. That person, not you. They might attack you, but what it's trying to do is run their life based on a script that may have come when they were 4 or 5. And so that little 4 or 5-year-old is now taking over the adult role and causing a lot of problems. And in trance logic, it makes sense, because if you didn't have someone say you're safe, then developmentally that person gets frozen. And that's how old they act. Not all the time, but when they get triggered. So why does that matter? Because a lot of people suffer and struggle and go in circles and circles and circles and lots of talk therapy, but they don't ever remove the emotion or the belief or the decision that there's something wrong with them or they're never going to be enough. A good hypnotherapist actually can go in and go, when did you decide that you're not worth loving? And somewhere in that session, some little part will pop up, usually in kind of a imagery. I bring people over the scene like they're a private investigator and they're looking at a time where this emotion came from, and I have them watch and tell me what they're seeing, and then weave through all the emotions and rescue that little part of them and say, what did you need that you didn't get? And it's usually someone to protect me or someone to tell me that it's going to be okay. And then this child part will often have a decision or a belief. I'll never be good enough. No one will ever love me. And that decision is the theme song of their whole life. And once we release that from that deeper little wounded self, you can heal completely because you're not carrying this lens. I say the glasses are like the lens that we see the world through. And we take the glasses off and say, what if that was not true? What would look different for you? And then that person will go, well, I'd have more energy, and I'd have, a better job, or I might like myself more. I might take better care of myself. I might get out of bed. I might be happier. And all of a sudden, they're able to see the world from a place of peace, or a place of possibility, or a place of joy. I'll just read a couple of things off one of my brochures that I had made recently. Hypnotherapy can be the key to lifelong change. I'm going to say something like, I've had people go, I've been clinically depressed for years. And I go, well, give me a shot. Give me a shot. Let me have 8 sessions with you. And if I can't get rid of your problem, I'll give you back your money. And that usually makes people go, wow, I might get some free therapy. I've never in my life ever had to give anyone back their money, because that gives me time to understand them and help them start to feel safe again, help them start to have some personal power again, and then have the courage to check out the part of them that needs to be loved or protected, that's basically been abandoned and is usually behind a lot of self-abuse. When you see somebody that overworks, that's a core wound. When you see someone that gambles a lot or even a little bit, it's thrill-seeking, that's fine. But if it creates a problem in their life, that's a core wound. If you see someone who struggles with weight issues, that's a core wound. And hypnotherapy, in my experience, is the most efficient way to clear that up, to get rid of it. So here we go. Until we make the unconscious conscious, which is the part of us that's running these shows, it will direct our life, and we will call it fate. So as an example, I had someone come not that long ago that watched one of the videos that I made, I don't know how long ago, and they were suffering. They were in a lot of pain, very depressed, considering taking their life because they were in that much pain. And that person's partner said, take this, please go see this woman. After the first session, I taught her how to learn to feel safe and to receive love. All we ever want is love. When we feel love, we can start to kind of see the world through a different lens. After that one session, the next week she came in. And then she said something to me that told me that a lot of the grief and the pain in her life was linked to keeping a secret about her family being really dangerous, and she wasn't safe to tell the truth. Now, if you're not safe to tell the truth, then you have to live as a fraud. You can't actually own your power. And as we unpacked that, and I sort of said to her, start listening to your body, not your head. She goes, oh, and then more information came in, more information. She stopped feeling crazy. The mind is not the answer for our problems. That's why talk therapy is sometimes useless. The emotions all come from the subconscious. So being able to listen and go, oh, I'm here for myself. I'm safe. I'm smart. I'm good enough. And to gently begin to reprogram the messages that we say to ourselves in the privacy of our own mind changes the whole thing. I'm going to read a few things that are on this brochure that I have seen hypnotherapy be very effective for. Depression, so that's usually repressed grief, loss, sadness that hasn't had the permission to be purged. It's like a giant wound that just hasn't been lanced. And some of us aren't taught that it's safe to feel our feelings. If you can't feel your feelings, you're in a lot of trouble because you're going to have to pick an addiction to run away from those. Guilt is usually, I'm bad, something's wrong with me. And if a person has guilt, even if they got away with something, they'll punish themselves. Their conscience will keep them in that state of one down. Now, if you could let go of that guilt, which is a subconscious emotion, and clear it and go, I did my best, I did a good job, there's all that energy that gets used to do something else. One of my favorites is when people are really angry. I'll go, so where do you feel the anger? And they're like, well, you don't want to get in touch with this anger. I said, the anger tells us something we need to know. So anger is usually an emotion that we equate with, we're going to get in trouble, someone's mad at us, something's going to happen. But anger is actually a message that we have been violated, and making peace with that and going, what do I need to do to allow this anger to have a voice makes a tremendous difference. And then clean it out of the body, not make it an intellectual loop, but clean it out of the body. I have a client that likes to play drums. I said, when you're angry, go play drums. If that makes you comfortable, if it makes you happy. But that's not her therapy. That's just a way of letting the anger be used in a positive way. Anger is actually a natural emotion. But if a person is chronically angry and they can't process it, it's going to turn into depression and maybe self-harm and maybe other things, or maybe hurting other people, or maybe trying to hurt other people by hurting themselves. So if that anger was gone, what would be different? How could you use your energy or your life differently? It's a very powerful question. I was always taught to be afraid of anger because my parents were so unwell. Confidence is huge, because confidence is, we all have tremendous capacity. Confidence is a part of us that says, I'm willing to put myself out there, I'm willing to take a risk, and I'm willing to believe in myself. Now, when that's plugged into the subconscious, that person's almost invincible, within reason. When we have confidence to take a risk, our life changes and we grow and we get thrills. We have, this whole thing about something new and novelty shows up in our life, and then we're actually getting a core need, which is novelty being met. And confidence allows us to believe that the world can be a fun playground and we can play and have a good time. And obviously there's a lot of stress in the world, but stress management. Most of the stress that we have in our life is linked to having a belief or a decision that there's something wrong with us, there's something wrong with the world we can't trust. So we're always scanning outside to look for safety, which doesn't work. If you learn to bring a sense of safety and calmness to your inner world, the world behind your eyes, and you can tune off that bong, safe from your body, and then do not let things into your space that are not comforting or not good for you, then you actually have a level of mastery in your life that few people can create in this lifetime because of the cell phones. Cell phones are a tool, but we are often slaves to them, and they rob us of our peace. They rob us of our time, and that creates more stress. So having boundaries reduces stress. Just saying, this isn't good for me. I will not speak with you until you're calm, and not taking anything personally. And those things have to be taught, but that gets plugged into the subconscious. For people that have weight issues, I've had lots of clients that had bulimia, and I've had anorexia, and people that just needed to lose weight and stop that binging. And I've, in some cases, done that in one session, but not all that many. I never try to do the one-hit wonders. I think that's it's unrealistic. I have to earn the person's trust. They have to trust themselves to trust me, and then on it goes. And one of the biggest ones, I think, is trauma. Trauma is usually, how somebody didn't get protected, right? So if I was a little girl and I didn't get the message that I was important or wanted, I'm just going to believe there's something wrong with me instead of I had parents that weren't well. And if I can heal that, then my life changes and I have many, many more choices. If on the other hand, I don't heal that, then my whole life is spent with the effects of that belief. If you believe you're not wanted, you've got a broken heart, and your whole life is created and lived from a place of I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, and often, giving yourself away for crumbs. So trauma is often what is underneath people's beliefs, their belief, my parents didn't want me, or I'm not safe in this world. And once that decision that's come from a child has been cleared, that person is free to actually be who they truly are, not to live in that kind of sandstorm of pain. So why would someone want to do hypnotherapy? To get on with their life, to have mastery in their life, to be able to love and to be loved, to be able to learn, to discover their own magnificence. The subconscious mind is much more than just this energetic field. It's connected to your spirit. And our spirits technically, doesn't live all in us. We have a tiny bit of our spiritual energy. And when people do this work, they often feel so calm and they feel so good and they feel like the world is different. It's because they're not listening to their mind. They're listening to their soul or their spirit or their heart. And once you have that, nobody can take that away from you. And then it's natural to want to build that. It's like, I'm going to build this garden where I feel safe. I feel wanted. I feel secure. I feel that I can love and be loved. I feel that I can forgive, maybe myself, maybe someone else. when you do that, that energy that was tied up in all of those emotional storms is now used to create whatever you choose. So the question is, how can hypnotherapy help you in almost any area of your life, whether you're an athlete, whether you're someone who wants to use it to give birth without medication, whether you're someone who has health issues that they want to resolve, whether you are someone who doesn't know how to regulate your nervous system. There's so many different things. And it's really all about, if you could give yourself something different, what could that look like? And going to someone who is well-trained is probably the best money you'll ever spend if they're well-trained. I had to go through 8 years of mentorship. And the woman that was my favorite teacher, she's passed quite a long time ago, but she was this little old lady, and you think you're going to have tea and crumpets with her. And she would absolutely go to the root cause of the problem in one session. She was so efficient that one of the local psychiatrists that would refer her clients would actually say, I'm sending you a client, don't get rid of the root cause, just help them manage the symptoms. And she didn't care. She thought, well, I might be able to save this person from being in therapy forever. So she would usually do one session, and she just had that capacity. She was so fearless. And in one session, she'd often get rid of the problem. And then the psychiatrist would phone her screaming, I told you, never, just get rid of the symptoms. So they still have the core problem, but the core problem is what's creating the symptoms. So it doesn't really make sense. And so she'd say, surely there's enough people suffering on this planet that you could let that one go. And I just adored her, because she was the kind of teacher that very few people would ever find. And she was a professional regression therapist, as I am. But she taught me. And she taught me how powerful we are when we can get rid of the lies that we have been fed and the lies that we continue to feed ourselves. So I'm just going to thank you so much for watching this. And if you're curious and you are interested in talking with me about, just a general few questions, I always give people a good 20 minutes of free consultation. And if you're comfortable and you want to actually do the work, then you're welcome from that square to decide whether you want to work with me. I live in Nanaimo, BC, and I have been doing hypnotherapy as a paid professional for 33 years. And the beauty of this work is that you don't keep your clients, which is why some of these videos are coming out for people to go, what is it? Do I like her? Thank you so much. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a wonderful day.